Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. What if the way that you've been practicing yoga, dedicated, disciplined, determined, with effort, maybe a little intensity, is actually the very thing that's limiting your optimal health, your energy, and even your longevity? Today's conversation invites us to question some of the deepest assumptions we hold about the thing that's closest to our hearts, our practice. I'm joined by Simon Borg-Olivier, who is a teacher that has spent over 50 years exploring movement, breath, and consciousness through both traditional yoga systems and modern science. He's a physiotherapist, researcher, and the co-founder of Yoga Synergy, and is known for his unique approach that blends biomechanics, nervous system awareness, and ancient yogic principles. Simon's work challenges the idea that yoga needs to be forceful or effortful to be effective. Instead, he is a proponent of how to cultivate strength without tension, flexibility without strain, and energy without depletion. This is a way of practicing that supports the body for a lifetime, not just for a season. And we have a similar idea about moving into ease and abundance and following the thread of ease and abundance through the body to create opening, to create greater access to consciousness. And so we are going to explore his personal journey, which includes his time in Mysore, India, practicing Ashtanga yoga, as well as his time practicing Iyengar yoga and other forms of yoga, the evolution that he's gone through over the decades, and what it really means to practice in a way that is intelligent, sustainable, and deeply connected. So I know that you are going to love this conversation. If you are a practitioner of yoga, someone who's interested in the body and in health and healing and longevity. And before we jump in, I just want to remind you that I will be teaching in Lisbon at Agora Yoga at the end of June and in Faro, Portugal in early July. So you can find the details in the show notes, and I would love to connect with you in person in Portugal this summer. Let's dive in. So welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. We are so happy you are here, Simon. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
You just walk right over me. Welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. This is your host, Harmony Slater, and your co-host, Russell Case. And then we introduce the guest. We do this every time.
Well, I'm just too excited to jump into it.
I'm very excited to meet you both. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a treat to be here, to meet you both.
I think Harmony would prefer it was just the two of you. That's what it seems like to me.
Well, you know.
Right before we started, Simon, can I call you Simon?
Yes, of course, please.
Okay. You don't go by Sai, do you? My brother's father went by Sai.
I mean, if you want, you can call me Simon, or you go, Sai and moan.
Sigh and moan.
Yeah.
So funny.
I will sigh and then moan and wave my hands, and I've gotten your attention.
Works.
You alluded to a trip to Mysore in 2003, and perhaps we brushed elbows.
Saying that it was you that was there in 2003.
I thought he said he had been there in 2003.
No. When was your first trip to Mysore?
But were you there in 2003?
My first trip to Mysore was 1989. And then I went a few times until the end of the 90s. Then I had about a 17-year gap from India, and I think I was absent from 97 to 2014. And then since then, I've been going back every year. So I had 10, 12 years from the 80s to the 90s, and then I've been back every year since 2014.
Was it because I was there?
People did say that, and I tried not to, bring it up like that.
I'm so sorry.
What was your experience like in 89 practicing?
In 89, I had been practicing Ashtanga already for about 5 years with teachers in Australia. And then when I got to Mysore and I said I want to come to the class, he said, come tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. And he made me sit and watch. So he put me in Padmasana in the corner of the room, sitting in lotus, and I watched for 2 hours while he took the first group through in the morning. And one of those people was Derek Ireland.
Yeah.
And he was an amazing guy.
The bronze golden god.
Yes, exactly like a Greek god, exactly.
Yeah.
And, he was so tall, he would take up, as he did things like Ekapada Kundinyas, and his feet would be going into the ears of the person next to him and the person behind him. And, there was only 12 people in the room in those days, and it was the 4 a.m. session. And my job that day was to sit and watch. And I remember being very impressed by him. And it was very sad then that about maybe 6 months later, I met him in Goa, and he sadly told me the news that he'd got cancer.
Prostate cancer, or testicular cancer.
Testicular, and then he passed away. Right. But I've been, in contact with his lovely wife for the last 30 years, and she's absolutely a wonderful being.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful. We had her on in a past episode.
We did,
a couple years ago.
And I actually hosted her in Brighton in the UK as one of her teachers. And I was probably a little starstruck, but also I felt dominated by her presence, her physical presence. I just submit to anything that she wanted.
She's a wonderful being indeed.
Yeah.
So you practiced several years in Mysore. You also went to Pune to practice with Iyengar as well.
Yeah, my origin of something to do with yoga was when I was about 6. And my father, without telling me it was yoga, I had to go for my swimming certificate when I was at school, and I couldn't do it. My bones are very heavy. So he said, all right, I'll teach you how to swim underwater. And he was a very experienced freediver. So he taught me how to swim a lap of an Olympic pool underwater before I could swim on top. And that's something that I've always done. I've kept up free diving, and I love it. And then when I was 8 years old, we came from Europe, from Southampton, actually, in the UK, to Australia, where I was born in Malta. That's why my father was a Mediterranean free diver. We came to Australia when I was 8. And on the boat, we came via South Africa, and we picked up a Rhodesian family, Zimbabwean now. And the father, Basil Brown, was a Rhodesian Olympic athlete. And he had somehow learnt Kriya. And he taught me Nauli Kriya and Uddiyana Bandha and all these things. Yeah, like all this. And so I learned that very easily when I was 8 years old, especially because I knew how to hold my breath for so long. And that became something I just did routinely, daytime, nighttime, and also underwater. So I was doing all these underwater movements, when I was a teenager. And then when I was 17, I met a Tibetan Lama who approached me, asked me to come and visit him. And for about a year or two, he trained me with esoteric practices. And at the end of it, he said, yoga.
Wait. He invited you to study with him at 17?
Yes. He approached me.
And where was that? Did he invite
Australia.
You to... In Australia.
In Sydney, Australia.
In Sydney. He invited you to his place there. Okay. You didn't go to Tibet.
No. It was just a very odd meeting. And I was in a room, probably a cocktail party or something with some friends. And he walked up to me, a very strange man, and he gave me his card, and he quite enchantingly said, please come to visit me. I've got a lot to share with you. And I don't know why he did it, but then I visited him every week a few times for about a year and a half, I think it was. And he taught me the essence of meditation and Tantra. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was only 17. I just got my driving license. But he was telling me about meditation, and it sounded so difficult because meditation, he described how you take off all your clothes and you sit naked in the snow. And that was meditation.
Wow.
Oh,
then,
sure.
He said at the end, meditation is yoga. You should go to a yoga class. And I went to a yoga class when I was 17, and I went, this is not for me. There's all these funny people sitting in this funny position. It was such an under yoga class. They were like this. And I'm going, what's the purpose of this? It just like it didn't seem at all interesting. So I thought I respected my Lama, but this was like out in space. So I ignored it, and then I went and did a little bit of aerobics and weight training and other types of typical sports till I was about 21. And then I broke my neck doing gymnastics. I dislocated my knee doing aerobics, got shin splints. I managed to get a tiny stab wound in my armpit doing fencing. I dislocated my buttocks trying taekwondo and messed myself up. And then at one point, one of my aerobics instructors said, you can't run anymore because my knees were so bad. So come to my stretch class. And she showed me some positions which helped me. And I said, this stretch class is good. And I said, can I come to more? She said, yes, keep coming. And it was at a gym. And then one day the teacher was away and they invited someone else to come take her class. And that someone else was an Iyengar yoga instructor. And when they came, the class was a bit different. I'm going, who is this strange person? And then they put me in this position like this again. I'm going, oh, no, not this again.
Not this again.
Not this again. But then she said, in this position, push your foot down, move your arm to the right, move your navel to the left while moving your arm. And I'm going, hold on, that changes everything. And the pose came alive for me. Suddenly it had purpose. Suddenly it was stronger than my weight training or my, it was suddenly alive. And so from that point on, I embarked in some Iyengar yoga training, and it was also a Japanese yoga thing. And I did a whole, 2.5, 3 year intensive, 3 hours a morning, 5 days a week. And then one of my teachers said he's going to go meet Mr. Iyengar in India at the end of 1985. And he said I should come with him. And when I got there, his name was Shandor Remete.
Shandor.
He was my teacher for like 10 years. And I have a lot of respect still for this amazing man. And so he sent me to India, but in the end he couldn't go. So I ended up coming to India at the end of 85.
All by yourself?
Yeah. And I stayed then a month with Guruji in India. And then I went probably maybe 10 times to study each month with Iyengar. And
Iyengar Guruji, okay.
I didn't study with Patabi Joyce much in India, but he came a couple of times to Australia and I studied with him. We did a beautiful 3-week intensive in the mid-90s, which was an intermediate level intensive with 15 people. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. There was 80 people coming to the primary series from 5 to 8 a.m. And then he had only 15 people doing the intermediate series from 8 till 10. And it was one of the most wonderful courses I've ever done in my life because it was so intense and wonderful. Sharat was there as well, but he was, still quite a young man. He was, quite young, actually. He was a lovely guy.
I want to talk a little bit about Shandor because he was doing shadow yoga.
Yes, yeah.
And I think also you were sort of one of the people who made shadow yoga quite famous, like in the early 2000s, Shandor and shadow yoga, and it was all like really, really growing, but I haven't heard about it for a long time now.
Shandor's stuff is amazing. I interviewed him last year and he's just as enlightened and wonderful as he always is. He tends to keep his teaching in a way that you have to do a whole bunch of preliminary stuff before you come to see him. But what he's teaching is very, very good. But at the level that he teaches, it's probably not accessible to the general public. So I have every respect in what he teaches, and it's amazing. But my biggest interest is trying to reach large groups of normal people. I do like teaching elite people, and I have the privilege of doing that occasionally. But I figure that maybe 95% of people in the modern world do nothing. And they're the people that I want to engage the most. So I teach much more simple techniques most of the time, and I educate the teachers who come to my training courses to try and teach stuff which is really simple and accessible. Whereas what Shandor is teaching is also able to be done simply if you follow all the steps and train for a few years. It's a brilliant system. But I think what he's specifically teaching is stuff that has to be educated for a while before you get to the stage where he's teaching it. I have every respect for the man. He's absolutely an amazing man. But we only officially trained together. I trained under him from 85 to about 93. Then we had ongoing connections where I went occasionally once a year till about 2000. He actually sold me one of his yoga schools in 1997. And that became, we had 3 schools from that point on, his one and 2 others that we had. And I was with Bianca Matchless, who's a physiotherapist like myself, and we ran Yoga Synergy in Australia. So a couple of years ago. Now she keeps running it independently, and we work a bit separately because we're separated by about 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah. Wow.
Can I just ask, what did your mother think of all of this?
My mother, she was my first yoga teacher. She taught me Garbha Pindasana, embryo posture, and she taught me the essence of yama and niyama, about sharing good energy and loving information inside myself. She didn't really know yoga, but she was the essence of yoga to me. She was my ultimate goddess.
You say she doesn't really know yoga, but she's teaching you some esoteric stuff. I mean, where did your parents sound crazy? Where did they pick this up from?
Look, I don't know, but they really were very good teachers for me, and they both passed away now. But I remember one time, maybe in the mid-90s, she said to me, "Where are you going now?" And I said, "I'm going to India." And she said, "But why are you going to India?" I said, "To study yoga." She says, "But you've been like 20 times already. Haven't you learned it already?" And I go, "It takes a lot longer than that to learn it." Which is funny now, because now people learn yoga in 1 month or 1 weekend, and that's how the professionals.
It's all on YouTube now. You can get everything you need there.
Free, and it's weekend. Yeah.
Your father was a professional free diver, or did he have something else that he did? Was he like the Prime Minister of Australia? What did they do?
My father's uncle was the Prime Minister of Malta.
That's okay.
My father was an amazing man, and he was a military man. He was in the British Armed Forces, and so that was his main job, to be an army captain or major. He was going to be a major, I think. But then he decided to leave the army, because otherwise me and my sister, who were only 8 and 5 at the time, would have had to go to boarding school. So he thought it's more important to be a father. So he left the army. We emigrated to Australia, and then he embarked on other careers, and legal careers and things like this.
Was there any military action that he served in? I'm just trying to place where he was in his career.
Look, he was in the conflicts in the Arab-Israeli wars in the 1967-68 period, I think.
Oh, right.
Because he's born in 37, so he just missed World War II. Right. And then he did stuff in the late 50s and early 60s. And I think he also went back to do the Falklands War in 84. That was something I found out after he passed away. He just got sent over to meet his colleagues for the Falklands.
That's so funny. I thought Falklands in my head when I asked the question. I don't know. It just came up.
That's something I found out only after he passed away, actually. It was because he kept it secret. He just snuck off 6 weeks.
Because I was just trying to place you generationally, because you're not that much older than us, but you're also not our parents' age. And so I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I was born in 60. I was born in 1960. So this year I'll be 66 years old.
Right. And so we're kind of both Gen X in a weird kind of way.
I'm a boomer. I'm 4 years before the end of the boomers.
You are a boomer. Okay.
Snuck in.
She's snuck into Gen X. And I'm
you're lucky.
All right. Yeah, that's amazing.
It's so incredible, because it sounds like your whole life yoga just kept coming to you, all of these teachers and experiences. Yeah. I mean, meanwhile, you're studying physiotherapy and really learning about the body, and you have this lineage or through line of breath and breathing and pranayama. And so after all of these years, 50 years about of
50. Well, dedicating he started as a 6-year-old.
It's closer to 60.
Closer to 60, right?
If you're learning Kriyas on a boat off of Madagascar, I'd say that 60 odd years.
I'm so curious, because I really appreciate your approach to the practice of yoga now, and even the fact you were saying in one of your social media posts, I don't call it yoga anymore. And this term yoga feels so overused, and it's used for asana and not really as you're saying, the whole practice of yoga, like what your mother taught you, right? About love and
Yeah.
connection and what the Tibetan monks talking about, like all of these deeper wisdom
Yeah.
practices. And so how do you make sense of like what's happening right now in this world of yoga and physical discipline or spiritual discipline even?
Yeah, I mean, to people like both of you, I'm happy to call what I do yoga. But to the general population, I find if I call it yoga, many people are put off by the word already because they often think it as overstretching or overtensing or overbreathing, which often makes people feel uncomfortable. So I find only about 5% of the people who start their first yoga class actually remain into the first year. And often if you ask a group of people, would you like to come to a yoga class? 50% will say no, just because of the word yoga itself, because of their perception of it. So I still believe I'm doing yoga, but I've had wonderful influences from people like my parents. And also, my first teachings were this chap in South Africa who also had some Indian background. But my first intensive training was with these Japanese yogis and Zen people, and then I also had this Tibetan Lama, and then I've also studied in the last 20 years. I had a couple of really major Chinese teachers, and then also teachers from indigenous cultures of Australia, South America, South Africa. And so what I'm teaching now, I believe, is the common origin of all the traditional teachings, and all of those teachings seem to resonate with what modern physics seems to say, which is that everything is connected, and the most connecting feature is consciousness. And that's what modern physics says. And that's, that's what I believe. It's what my mother was saying. We're all connected as one family. So what I believe is that I'm teaching now the common origin of all traditional teachings and how it resonates with an understanding of modern medical practices and how it relates to how we can deal with this for the modern adult Western body, which is not like the traditional Eastern body, which sat cross-legged on the floor, squatted to go to the toilet, carry things in their heads, and basically moved all day long. I think if we're going to take traditional practices that they called yoga, you have to adapt it and take into consideration the limitations of the modern Western body. And the thing that I find is the most in common thing with all of these traditional practices and the understanding of modern medical science is that all of them talk about moving from your core, breathing from your core, resonating the thinking brain in the head with the gut brain at your core. And this resonates with the idea of the enteric nervous system in modern medical science and the important connections between this large network or plexus of nerves between your navel and your pubic bone inside, wrapped around your intestines, which we call the gut brain, and how that resonates also with the understanding that physiotherapists have about engaging the lower abdomen, which is often very misunderstood. And then, of course, in China we have the Dantian. In Japan we have the Hara and the Tanden. In Tibet they have another beautiful name also for the Tanden, the Dantian. And in India, the name you probably know, but many people don't. It's the Kunda, and the Kunda is the origin of 72,000 nadis. And so even in the indigenous cultures of Australia, where I live, they call it the Nadu Kuru, and they talk about the inner environment having to match with the outer environment. So most of my teaching now is about focusing on how to connect with your core, and the core is a tiny invisible spot, so many people can learn to control their lower abdomen, but the lower abdomen is really what we learn to control in Indian Kriya. So we talk about Dauti Kriya, Basti, and Lauliki and Nauli, and then how the core itself connects with the peripheral nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. So we have things like Tratika and Neti Kriya, where we're talking about the alternation between the nostrils and the eyes. So for me, it's all about the most important things that I try and do in my practice and teaching is create meditative practices which are sustainable, engaging, calming, effortless, but also invigorating. When I say invigorating, it pumps blood through your body while you're relaxed. So I call my practice the aim to share good energy and loving information through a pain-free functional body in a sustainable way through your life, where the pain-free functional body is, basically you can do the activities that you want, which as I get older is just, reach the top shelf asana, turn around, reverse park asana, this sort of simple stuff. I don't need to do legs behind the head. I want to go dancing. I want to wrestle with my son, and then the good energy and loving information is good energy is having healthy blood flow and lymphatic flow, which is what energy travels through your body with, but with a low heart rate. And, otherwise, the more the heart pumps up, usually the more stress you have. And I call it good energy and loving information. The loving information is the dominance of your parasympathetic nervous system. And so then you're feeling rest, rejuvenation, relaxation, regeneration, the same relaxed state you're having when you're asleep, but with the same benefits that you get with exercise. So I look for the practices which give you the benefits of exercise and sleep at the same time, but without the disadvantages of exercise, which include stress, and the disadvantages of sleep, which include immobility and lack of blood flow. And when I do all of this, then I get a good result, and you try and do it in a meditative way.
Beautiful.
This came up for me in my meditation yesterday. I wanted to ask this question. I feel like a really kind of a thorny issue that we encounter in meditation is, like, for example, I remember in Vipassana with Goenkaji that he really just wants you to observe what's happening. And then, but from all of these things that you've described, like they all sound like techniques that I can use to improve my situation. And so I have a tendency to want to, like, I'll notice I'm sitting there meditating and I notice that my heart's beating rather quickly. I'll just pump a little bit into my upper chest, slow that heart rate down a little bit. That's better. But like Goenkaji would say, no. Just observe what's happening. You don't need to go in there and try and fix anything. It's like, well, I could just fix a little bit. If I could just fix a little bit, I've got a rib out. I'll just fix it a little bit and go back to sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you sit on this spectrum of fixing it if you could, or just observing what's there?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I look at the body on 5 levels. So I want to do posture, movement, breathing, mental control, lifestyle changes, which I can do to alter my life, my physical body on 5 levels: the physical, the physiological, mental, social, and financial or lifestyle level. So I want practices that will physically give me a pain-free functional body, physiologically, improve blood flow while being relaxed, which will help balance my immune, digestive, reproductive system and the internal organs of longevity. And then also mentally to keep me with a calm, focused mind that has a resonance or a balance between the logical thinking and the intuitive thinking, and also having happiness as my default natural function, and also being able to have the things that like purpose in your life, spirituality, etc. on mental level. I put it in that thing, but then also have it so that whatever I choose to do in my personal practice time or whatever I do in my life, physically with my posture, movement, breathing, mental control, etc., is going to give a positive result socially. So then I'm going to be a better father, better, employer, employee, teacher, friend to people. And then in my life, in terms of finances and lifestyle, it also helps that. I'm sure we've all had this situation where you're practicing hard, you do a good workout, next day you can hardly move. So I don't want that. I want to be able to make my practice give me, I call this difference between doing a workout and a work-in. A workout's okay, but at the end of a workout, you usually have less energy, more need for food and sleep, and often more pain. But at the end of a work-in, which I think of as closer to yoga, you should have more energy, less need for sleep, less need for food, and actually a better result physically, physiologically, mentally, socially, financially, So that's what I'm looking for. So then when you're looking at what you said, if I'm doing an observation of my body, which of course is good to observe what's happening when you're living in your body, especially in a focused practice time, you can just look but it's actually, I found, more fruitful to make a systematic scanning of the body. So I have different pathways where I'm looking at specific spots. It's like when you mow the lawn, you could just randomly mow the lawn, or you could have a way of mowing it systematically. So when I'm observing my body, like Goenka would say, I would be scanning different ways. I have different pathways. I go around what in China they might call the microcosmic orbit, or I observe chakra points throughout my body, or Marmarstana points. And then if I find a place which is like, well, that bit's a bit dodgy, I might take a few moments to do something to help it. But then I go, which is my most important thing right now? When I scan my body first off, I go out of physical, physiological, mental, social, financial, which is the most important thing. Today, actually, my knee hurts. I can't really proceed until I fix my knee. Or today, my physical body's fine, but my energy's low. I have to focus on energy. Or both physical and energetic are fine. Today, I have to focus on my mind. So then I fix the bit that needs most fixing, and then I continue my observation and try and maybe just be more accepting of how I am, or just get the energy to circulate and just bathe in that love that you get. Sometimes I say the purpose of the practice is to feel like you're in a warm bath being massaged by someone who loves you. That's you get that, because many people, if you say to them, come to a class, it's a free class, I'm going to teach you how to really stretch and strengthen, tense your body, and you'll get lots of information. They go, actually, it doesn't sound that nice. But if I say, no, come today, you won't have to do anything, just lie back, I'll put you in a warm bath and massage you lovingly, would you come for that? People make space and time for that. So often people don't practice with the excuse, I haven't got time. But if you make it so appealing, so lovely, that they have to enjoy it. I believe we should enjoy our practice. Guruji, as in Iyengar Guruji, he said to us that you can't really give much yoga to the modern adult body. He said most people need 90 to 99% boga. And boga, B-H-O-G-A. He said, it's the sensual delight in what you were doing, because that keeps people coming back. He said you can give maybe a good recipe, he said 90% boga, maybe 9 to 10% therapy, where you fix up the messes that you find, maybe 1%, and then maybe 1% yoga where they're happy with how they are. Because anyone can get yoga. All you've got to do is just say, I'm happy with how I am.
But nobody's happy with how they are.
That's the problem. Most people are not happy with how they are. So it makes it easier to be happy with how you are. If you develop a pain-free, functional body, if you have lots of energy while you're relaxed, then mind is a lot happier. Usually if someone's miserable, if you make their body with more pain, they usually are more miserable. If you take away their energy and give them stress, they're more miserable. So there's no one answer to give solution to people's brains. But generally, if I have to give a general thing, make their body pain-free, give them energy, keep them relaxed, and then it's usually easier to choose happiness. Because I believe happiness is a choice, not something you wait for. But if you have the environment where you're pain-free, functional, energized, and calm, it makes it easier to choose happiness. So that's what I try and do with my practice to a certain extent.
That does sound like someone who was practicing Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance.
Really important.
Where you're looking to find a flow in the constant tinkering of this machine, but still trying to find a sense of peace and the balance.
Yes. I love that book. I read it maybe 5 times. I thought it was so amazing. I think what you said is very true. I'm tinkering, but at the same time trying to accept, seeing what I can do, exploring. I never get bored. If someone, you're probably the same, but if I have a few minutes of doing nothing, I just go into my body. There's 50 trillion human cells, and there's probably who knows how many 50 to 950 trillion other cells. I'm trying to make them all work as one. So I can spend hours exploring my inner self in a way where I'm learning more and trying to fix up, clean up the house, make it more appropriate. And, it's a wonderful thing. Tinkering and looking and fixing and helping. And I call it airplane yoga, where they say to you on the airplane, before doing anything else in case of emergency, put your own gas mask on first before you put on your food. So I believe that the way I said it, that I want to enjoy my life, look after my body, help other people enjoy their lives. It's not just, it's a selfish practice of I want to make myself feel good. I'm doing it for a reason. I make myself feel good physically, physiologically, mentally, so that I can be a better social interactor, a better interactor as a teacher, as a father, friend, etc. It's not just a selfish practice. We're doing it to help the world be better.
Yeah, a couple things stand out as I'm thinking about what you're saying, which is like finding the ease in the body and the ease in what you're doing and moving from a place of ease or into a place of ease, inviting it to feel good. Mm-hmm. And also like this corresponding, like seeing the yoga and the practice, like your spiritual practice, as sort of spanning or fanning out into all these different areas of your life, and looking at your life holistically and saying, like, where do I need to focus my attention? What is this day asking of me? What is this body asking of me? What is my mind asking of me? And not just limiting it to like a set sequence of postures or like following something that's very regimented and like I have to do step A and go to step Z and do that for an hour or 2 hours every day, which I think is very limiting. And when you start seeing like your spiritual practice like that, even if it's like I have to do 20 minutes of meditation and 30 minutes of pranayama and an hour and a half of asana and a half hour of chanting, like, I mean, even if you have many different tools you're using, as soon as it becomes this sort of like, I have to do all of these things in order to be spiritual, it kind of like starts not feeling like it's coming from a place of ease. It's coming from a place of force. And then like what you're saying, instead of it creating connection and deep listening, it kind of like creates disconnection in a way.
Yeah. Doing those things that you said are very powerful. It's good to be able to be sometimes fixed. Like say, for example, if your mind is scattered and you go, I need to fix myself. I don't know what to do. I know, I've got a recipe. So you just follow the recipe, like Ashtanga Vinyasa was very good for that. So you just go, what do I have to do practice? I know, I just come to the mat and go ekam, dve, and do my practice. And sometimes that's actually what you do need, a simple recipe to follow, but to be flexible. I mean, Mr. Iyengar once, he did this classic line once where he was, moving and adjusting people's legs and then his back. And someone said to him, Guruji, what's the most difficult part of a person to adjust? He goes and just taps on his head like this. People's brains, you have to be flexible. And, people talk about yoga as being to do with stretching. Actually, we don't want stretch. We want flexibility. And flexibility in the body is useful for mobility and physical freedom, but flexibility physiologically is also very important. How much can you breathe? How much can you not breathe? How much can you sleep? How much can you not sleep? How much can you take heat or cold? But the most important flexibility is in your head. How much are you attached to one practice to make you happy? How much can you let go of it and still be happy? So all of these things I believe are really important. And I do have a whole bunch of fixed sequences which I can work with, but I'm happy to let them go and explore new things. It depends on the environment and what's happening inside me, or if it's a class. I think when everyone starts teaching, they have this recipe, and then you come into after teaching for a year or so, you come into the class and go, my recipe's not going to work. You can see straight away the class is not suitable for your recipe. So now I've stopped having recipes for classes. I walk in, see the group, and I make up a new recipe on the spot. But that comes with years of teaching. And I think with your own practice, it's the same. In the beginning, it's good to have a recipe, but as you become more experienced with your own self, then you can start to develop recipes every day, which might be part of a sequence you've done before, or might be something completely new. But you look for observation, interaction with what you're observing and looking at, and trying to tweak, as you were saying, the rib, the thing. I want to observe. I want to be happy with how I am. But maybe some bits we can change easily, which will make it easier to be happier and easier to get a better result for yourself and for the world around you,
Yeah. And what you're talking about is like also like graduating from being a student, just learning how to like,
perfect.
Chop carrots to like becoming a chef who knows how to create a delicious meal.
Good analogy. But at the same time, we can always say, I'm still a student. I'm still learning, because every day I feel like a beginner. And, at 66, I'm doing okay. but there's certain bits of me that I would like to change. I went for a blood test in India last year, and they came back and they said, your physical age is 66, but your biological age is 48. And I went, that's all?
That's all. Yeah.
But it's quite good, but I would like to be younger still, and but I'm doing okay, but I'm sure there's things I can improve. I've probably broken or damaged every joint in my body. They're mostly functional, but they could all be a lot better. I used to love wrestling with my son, and I was always very gentle with him when he's young. Now he's 19. I have to be careful. I have to be careful because he'll beat the shit out of me. He'll hurt me. But I'm not fast enough for my son anymore. So I'd like to improve on all levels,
The last time we wrestled, I body slammed him and broke the bed. And that was the last time that I let him wrestle me, because I won that engagement. But at this point, he's 180 pounds. He's 6'1". He's a giant, and I'm not going to let him beat me the next time we wrestle.
No, exactly.
I'm too old for this. And that's really also what I said about my yoga practice. Is that one of the best things about getting older is, I think, this sense of generationally giving up. It's like, I'm not going to play in the National Basketball Association. I've given up on that dream. I'm just going to be me. And I'm just not going to, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And it's such a blessing to not have to think that I'm going to win all kinds of yoga awards anytime soon. That is way in the rearview mirror now. And I can just go back to where I was in the beginning, where I was just curious. And I feel like that's something that I'm sensing from your description of where you are in your practice as well, that it's just, it's curiosity and engagement, but not like seeking Instagram perfection.
No, exactly. Yeah. I remember, struggling for years to do a scorpion pose and eventually mastering it. It was what I got was not, I'm asking people, how far is my foot to my head? They'd go half a meter. And then as the weeks went on, only 10 centimeters, 5 centimeters. And then one day there was this boop, and my foot touched my head. And I was expecting lights and colors and trumpets. And all I got was like a sore back the next day.
And a boop on the head.
And the legs behind the head. Eventually legs behind the head. And then all I got was a stiff neck and a sore hip. And then but in my life, twice, I was in movies where, do you remember Christopher Atkins? He was in Blue Lagoon with Brooke Shields.
Oh, that's a great movie.
In the 1990s.
She was too young for that movie.
She was too young for that movie. But in the 1990s, I was in a film with Christopher Atkins. And it was called Exchange Lifeguards. There is 3 seconds where I'm doing a scorpion. And the movie didn't really go anywhere but straight to video or DVD. But
wow.
Time in my life where scorpion became useful. Once.
Yeah.
Wow.
Once.
Then one time I was in a commercial for the John Sands company, which made the game Twister. You remember the game Twister? Where that was me dressed up as a circus clown, and I'm pretending I'm about to go on stage, and I had one leg behind the head, and I had to say the line, "Why do people going on stage say break a leg?" And they had me doing it 50 times, leg behind head, 50 degrees, different angle. And I said, could I change legs? They said, no, you have to use your left leg. But I kept doing, and at the end, I left, twisted to one side, and they gave me $50. And they said, thank you very much. And that was me using leg behind the head. That's it. I've never used those two postures in any functional way in my life except twice. But
it's the only use.
Really damaged my lower back and my hips, I think,
Yeah, it was worth about $150.
Yes,
it would get a lot of play on Instagram now if you could get some tape of that.
Well,
that'd be good.
If I could do the postures that I did in the 80s and 90s now on Instagram, I'm sure my account would go to 2 million very quickly. That's what I see. I was doing very flexible things, but they don't really give you anything. I've got old videos of me doing stuff, but mostly in the 80s, 90s, we didn't have cameras.
Yeah. And if you had a thong, that would also help, in my experience.
We had thongs. I think I gave one to Sean.
Wow. Do you have something? I was going to ask another question. Do you have?
Go for it.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking this about how lucky you've been. and how so clearly that's evidence of some karmic debt that you paid in a previous life to continuously be given these boons by the devas, with the boon being education and yoga. And it's phenomenal. And I was thinking if I could compare myself in any way, and I was thinking about, oh, well, I sat on the ground my whole childhood, but I was sitting asymmetrically playing video games, which did me no good in yoga. I was half flexible on half the sides. Do you have any sense of that, of the kind of amazing synchronicity of your life? Do you wonder how someone like you got this and the next bloke down the street just kept missing yoga as it drove by?
It's very funny. I do feel very fortunate that I got given the things I got given, but along the way, I also made lots of mistakes, and I almost died. I think I counted last time. I came very, very close to death about 4 or 5 times, and somehow, through the grace of universal consciousness, I ended up getting a balance of good and bad. Still, I feel the effects of pretty much every near-death experience that I've almost had. I was telling my friend this morning that, when I was 15, I blew up my lungs with a chemical explosion I did as a junior scientist. And I've had, luckily my pranayama helped me, and I fixed it up, and my breathing control. At 20 years old, I fell and broke my neck, and I still can hardly move my neck, but headstand is very good for me. It, stabilizes my neck. At 30, I was in India, and I was trying to stop a bunch of people fighting. Someone thrust a machete into my stomach and just missed my spleen. I was in the hospital for a few weeks, had to have surgery, About 12 years ago, I was doing a commercial for a Muslim car company, and I fell off a building and head first fell 4 meters and broke both my hips, damaged my wrist, broke my arm in 2 places, and tore off my triceps, and again damaged my neck. Those are some of them. So, whatever benefits I've got on one level, and I've learned from all my injuries, they've been a gift. For everything that you break and you sort of help fix, it means I'm a better fixer of those things for other people. But it was painful, and it's limited me now to a certain extent. I can't run anymore because of both hips being fractured. And I find now seated postures a little bit more difficult than they used to, and I don't do extreme hip flexions anymore. So everything paid a price, but with what I got was a balance of, good things and bad things together. Yeah. I feel blessed, but at the same time, there was a price for all of it. And sometimes I think I was very naughty in my teenage years, and in my early 20s, I did some things which really I'm not very proud of, but that may have been the price I was paying for all the things I got afterwards, and maybe it's just balanced now, and I've got something. Don't know.
Gosh, you remind me of some adventurer like Sir Richard Francis Burton, who traveled the world and been in 1,000 knife fights. Like, that's amazing.
Yes.
You're really living this life, like just wringing it out, aren't you?
Yeah, I've had my nose broken 5 times. You can see it goes. I've got nasal drift on one side, kicked, punched, beaten.
I can turn my nose upside down. I cut my nose off when I was a child.
Incredible. That's
I cut it right off. And then every once in a while, after I do that, I have to put it back in.
That's a great dad joke.
It's a good dad joke.
Thank you very much for that. No, but I did cut it right off when I was 7.
Well, I can sympathize.
This side was cut right off. But this side was left just a flap.
I've never seen such a flexible nose in my life.
Thank you so much. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me today. Yeah. Living with this she doesn't ever think to flatter me at any point. So that's nice. Thank you so much, sir. Take that with me.
So I love how you're like opening up the yoga field to people who might not come to yoga, because I think your life experience obviously also is a testament to how beneficial it can be for healing and, just rejuvenating your body and your biological age and all of those things. And so where can people come and find you and learn more from your incredible treasure trove of knowledge and experience?
I have 2 main websites. One of them is under my name, simonborgolivier.com, and you just spell it as one word. That website also you can reach by going 5-dimensional flow with either the number 5 or the letter 5. And because, like I said, most of what I'm teaching is about connecting the thinking brain in your head with the action brain or gut brain at your core. And your core, which is a small version of the trunk, can move in 5 different ways. It's like, I call it 5 dimensions: forward, backward, side, side, twist, twist, lengthen, shorten, expand, contract. So that's the name of what I'm teaching. And so you can come to me with 5dimensionalflow.com or my name, simonborgolivier.com. And then I have another website, which is my membership website, where people can join for free. And I would invite you all to join for free.
Yeah.
And you can come either at a free level where you get access to a whole bunch of stuff, or a subscription paid level where there's hundreds of hours of my sessions, my classes and stuff and lectures. Or you can come at an intensive teacher training level where you get connection live every couple of weeks and stuff like that. And so that's called healthhappinesslongevity.co. All spelled as one word, those 3 words: health, happiness, longevity. And that's what I want to share. I want to share about health, happiness, and longevity. And I call it simple ways of using posture, movement, breathing, mental control, and lifestyle changes for health, happiness, and longevity. And, if I can share one more thing quickly, is one of the biggest things that I think is different to the work that I'm doing compared to other people is I get people to connect not with their breath, because breathing is what many people say, observe your breath. But when you observe it, you change it, or to make bigger, more breaths. The 2 things I learned about breathing from my father and Basil Brown, who taught me Kriya, was that what you want to learn as much as possible is to reduce the amount of air, breathe less, not more, that comes in and out of you. And then also to maximize the use and control of your muscles of breathing. So like Kriya, uses the internal organs of breathing without actually breathing. And then your meditation is where you breathe less. But the thing is, they often say that breathing is the link between body and mind, or breathing is the link between conscious and unconscious. But it's not your breath. It's your diaphragm. And your diaphragm is fairly special in the body because your diaphragm is a muscle you can control consciously when we say breathe into the abdomen, but also when you're asleep in your most regenerative cycle, it happens by itself. So that's what makes it a bridge, because it's a bridge between conscious and unconscious, a special muscle that has both autonomic and somatic control. But there are at least 11 other places in the body which also have that control. And they're the places which are the secret places of yoga, including your outer eyes are blinking, your inner eyes, which we roll and we talk about drishti, then also the tongue, the lips, the jaw, also the pelvic floor, front, back, and middle, and then other places, including the connection between fingers and shoulders, between your psoas and the sacroiliac joint and the toes. So I get people to access these 12 bridges between conscious and unconscious, and then they reset their nervous system, they move blood more easily, and they have a connection which is a bridge between their thinking and their feeling, and all of this links in with the core then. And that's something which is really simple to share by getting people to do simple things like moving their fingers, rolling their shoulders, moving their neck, relaxing the pelvic floor, expanding their abdomen, moving their lips, their face, their eyes, and just doing that. You get people who don't do any exercise, just do that. They suddenly start to feel warmer, calmer. They come out of a panic state. And that's a simple practice, which I share with many people. And then for experienced people, you put that into posture. Do it very slowly while you're meditating or in posture. And that changes everything for most people. And it's something that's very easy to share. So it's more complex.
I love that. Because that's very connected to like how I've learned to work with the body and the energetic fields too, and really just being with the body, listening to the natural breath in the body, presencing sensation in the body. Your body naturally starts to unwind and release the tension patterns if you get out of the way of trying to control everything.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
stop.
I love this.
Yes.
It's so simple, and yet
Yes.
we make it so complicated
Yes.
with our brains.
That's why I have a 3-step practice. So my general rule is 3 steps. First step is the aim to move good energy and loving information through a pain-free functional body. Second step is stop blocking that aim. So to do that, tense less, stretch less, breathe less, think less. And then the third step, encourage that aim, make the energy move using simple things like moving from your core, moving actively, breathing naturally, moving fluidly. And, if we do this for 90 to 99% of the time, work effortlessly. But if you want to, there's always the caveat that for 1 to 10% of the time, go as hard as you like. Freedom is doing anything you want. So I'm not saying never tense, never stretch, but it's not tension that we want. We want strength without tension. It's not stretch that we want. We want flexibility without stretching. It's not breathing that we want. We want energy without having to breathe so much. It's not thinking that we want. It's intelligence in your cells. So it's not relaxation that we want. It's being able to do things while being relaxed. So I'm looking for a union of opposites, like Ha and Ta. Yoga means union. So I say, let's develop strength without tension, flexibility without stretching, blood flow without the heart racing, intelligence without thinking, relaxation without having to lie on your back. Blood flow without the heart racing, and energy.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
Well, you are really a delight to sit with, sir. And I
really
appreciate
it.
I know. One day we'll get down to Australia.
Are you in
so
Sydney?
far?
Are you in Sydney? Is that a place where people could study with you?
He's up near Byron Bay.
I'm in Byron Bay. I'm just inland of Byron Bay. Actually, do you ever remember watching Crocodile Dundee with Paul Hogan?
Of course.
He was my next door neighbor. He moved out a little while ago, but he used to live just next door.
Wow.
That's not a
property just inland of Byron Bay. It's a lovely 10-acre property. It's a little bit difficult to manage because I'm not really a good farmer, but today I'm going to go out and try and clean my house up. But it's beautiful. It's about 800 kilometers north of Sydney, 500 miles, say, north of Sydney. But I'll go to Sydney next week to visit. And, people can come here or they can come see me online, or I travel all around the world. Haven't been to Canada since 2017. I think the United States.
We'd love to have you.
I'd love to come one day.
You could sleep right. This is the most comfortable couch. It's on every podcast. And you're welcome to sleep on this couch. You'd love it.
Yeah.
Please. And then you could go skiing in Banff if your hips allow.
Sounds great.
Great.
Where's your next trip? Where are you off to
next?
next?
In a couple of weeks. I've got a retreat actually here next week. I've just come back from Perth in Western Australia for a week. Then next 2 weeks' time, I go to 6 weeks in Italy, 10 days in Malta, then a week in Berlin, a week in France, 3 weeks in the UK. Then I go Hungary, Slovenia, Serbia, then back to Australia. Then I'm here for a couple of months. And then I do again at the end of the year, I go to Thailand, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, China, and then a month in India. And India and Italy are where I do my 1 month intensive trainings. The others are all week-long workshops and stuff.
Yeah. Whereabouts in India do you do the training?
I love going back to Goa because Goa is my second home, although now they have, Western prices for Indian quality things in the beautiful town of Goa. India's changed a lot, but I still like going there, but I'm thinking maybe it's too expensive for many of my students now.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Nude high Russians are why I go to Goa, is to encounter that.
You like going to Goa? Maybe we'll meet in Goa sometime.
That'd be nice. That'd be really nice. To go there.
Yeah.
Be good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
I've
thank
had
you
my
so
best times and my worst times there. That's right.
I'm sure. That's where you got stabbed.
Yeah. I've had rocks dropped to my head. They tried to rob me. They beat me. But we had the best parties on the beaches in India and Goa in the 1980s and early 90s. Now they've become the trance parties all around the world. I think things like Burning Man probably started, from the ideas of what happened in Goa. We had great times.
I think so.
The only time I've ever thrown a man like 10 yards has been in India, and it really is a great place to live.
Great place to go about 10 yards. Yeah.
Are you close to where Dina Kingsburg lives?
Dina is my dear friend. I've known her since the mid-'80s, and she lives probably only maybe 5 kilometers over the hill, but it would take me 20 minutes to drive to her house.
Right, you have to go around.
We live right next to each other, but I've hardly seen her. Even Gregor, Male, and Monica, them. They're also 30 minutes away, and I see them where I can. And there's lots of quite well-known teachers who live very close to me, but none of us teach here, except for Dina. She still teaches. She's very regular. Yeah. But everyone in Byron Bay is a yoga teacher or a health therapist or a massage therapist. So it's almost impossible for me to draw clients from my local area. Even the retreat I'm having at my house next week, I've got 4 people coming from Taiwan. Last month I had 2 people come from London. I had people come from Canada to come to me to study, but no one from the local area comes. pretty much
Yeah.
know.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
Gosh, I taught in Taiwan for about 3 years. I wonder if I know them. But
Yeah.
we have to run and pick up our son.
Yeah.
But if you see Dina, say hi.
Yes, yes.
We went to Dina's house, and we should have. It would have been wonderful to see you while we were there.
Oh, she's a divine being. She's a goddess of the highest caliber, and Jack is an incredible god who lives with her and who's been a wonderful partner with her for the last 30 years. I remember when they met, actually.
Harmony saw him naked, washing himself.
They have the outdoor shower.
I was putting the make on Dina inside, and you went for it with him. So that was really cool.
Like a Greek god as well. He's like Derek Island.
He is. He really is.
But they are beautiful, wonderful people, and I love them dearly.
We've got to meet.
Next time we're in Byron Bay, we're coming over to your house.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you very much for this beautiful meeting. Please get in touch with me with any of you like. And anyone wants to write to me, you can write to me via the website, or find my email, or WhatsApp me, telephone me, and I'm happy to share. If you join my website, you can get a whole bunch of free stuff. But if you write to me, I'll also send you stuff as well.
Beautiful. We'll put all the links to all of your places in the show notes as well, so people can follow you online.
Really such a privilege and pleasure to meet you both and chat. Thank you very, very much.
Too. If this conversation woke something up in you, perhaps a desire to experiment with the way you're practicing, to practice in a way that feels more connected to your intuition or more alive in your body, then I'd love to meet you in person this summer in Portugal. I will be offering 3 immersive experiences, and this is an invitation to reconnect to yourself, to your body, and listen deeply. The first place I will be is Lisbon from June 25th to the 28th at Agora Lisboa. This is a weekend workshop all about subtle energy and the deeper dimensions of yoga. And then I will be teaching 2 classes at the Being Gathering, which is a huge festival from July 1st to the 5th. And that will be followed by a 5-day Ashtanga immersion. This is going deep. We are working with the elements. There will be my source style practice every day. And it is an opportunity for you to find that attunement, to start to respond in a way that perhaps you didn't know was within you, to connect to your body, to your nervous system, to your energy field, and open up direct access to your unique path. You're going to find all the details in the show notes. I cannot wait to see you there. Sign up now. Registration is open. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.